Here's a second attempt at lesson 15. I'm sorry the first one did not go. I tried, and I thought that it was loaded, and I was told by students that it wasn't, so I apologize for this. Here's what lesson 15 is. It starts with a fourth conjugation. A fourth conjugation is one of 5 types of conjugation. There's the first, second, third, I, and fourth. That's a total of 5 different conjugations because you have the strangely named third I, which your book usually refers to as third I-O. I don't like the term third I-O because you add an I in most of the conjugations of the third I conjugation, not an I-O. So the indicative present active for the fourth conjugation, this is the final conjugation that you have not learned yet. I do want to point out to you that the first and second conjugation always behave like one another. Third and third I always behave like one another. And fourth sometimes behaves like first and second. And sometimes fourth behaves like third and third I. So fourth is a little unpredictable. That's why it's taught last. To do the indicative present active for the fourth conjugation, you take the second principal part. For example, you take audiri. You would drop the RE as you become accustomed to do. Look at the pattern though. For the first conjugation, you drop the RE. The second, you drop the RE, and the fourth, you drop the RE. For the third and third I conjugations, you drop the ERE. So once you drop the RE for a fourth conjugation word, you just add the OST, must, tis, and int. There's one variable here, one irregularity. You have to add a U to the NT there. If you don't add the U to the NT there, you have a strange looking Latin word, and you rarely see in Latin just INT. You usually are going to see backwards. You're usually going to see IUNT, as you do in this example. So you have the regular OST, must, tis, UNT. It's a simple process if you've followed so far with the first, second, third, and third I conjugation. Drop the RE, add the endings, one exception, UNT for the third person plural. The indicative imperfect active is similarly simple if you've understood the other ones. Take the second principal part, so you'd take audira, drop the RE, and again the pattern is first conjugation, second conjugation, third, third I, and fourth, re, era, re. Then you add EBA for the fourth conjugation, and again the pattern is first conjugation is BA, second conjugation is BA, then EBA, IEBA, and then back to EBA for the fourth conjugation, which we're doing now. So you'd add EBA, and then you'd add your endings, MST, must, tis, and int. No irregularity there. BA does not need a U. And then you have your theme, which is the same all the way through the second principal part minus the RE. That's the imperfect. The imperfect is always translated in the same way, was or used to. This would translate as I used to hear or I was hearing. The indicative perfect active is much simpler than the first two even, because you just take the third principal part. For example, you would take audiwi. As always, no matter which conjugation it is, you drop the I. That's first, second, third, third I, and fourth. And then you add the regular old endings e, isti, eat, imus, istus, erunt, and remember the book doesn't tell you, but you also have the option of adding era if you're doing poetry. Roman poets will add era instead of erunt, or instead of erunt, they will add era. They don't have to, but often they do. The indicative pluperfect active, same pattern. You take the third principal part, drop the I, and then you just add the eram, eras, erat, eramis, eratus, erant. The pluperfect is always translated as had. So in this case it would translate as I had heard, or you had heard, or he, she, it had heard, we had heard, you all had heard, they had heard. No brainer. The pluperfect and the perfect are much easier than even the present and the imperfect. Same process for the indicative future perfect, active. Take the third principal part, drop the I, and then you just add ero, eresirit, eremisirit, disserint. You should add no dash. I'm just making my point right there. And then the future perfect is translated strangely. It's not a common tense, but you translate it as I will have heard. You will have heard. And do note that down here in the third person plural, there is a simple INT. Earlier I warned you that that is not that common in Latin. This is very rare. Usually there's going to be a U before the NT, not just an I. But this is as it is. This is how it should be. So it's irregular, even though it kind of looks like it should be regular. But otherwise, except for this minor irregularity, no issues with the indicative future perfect. Same process you'd follow for first, second, third I, or fourth conjugation. Now the book gives you all of the future tenses at one time. That may seem overwhelming, but it's actually pretty simple. The process is that you take the second principal part for any future, whether it's first, second, third I, or fourth conjugation. You drop the RE or the RE for the first and second conjugations, and you drop the RE for the fourth conjugation. You drop the ERE and the ERE for the third and third I conjugation. Take that principal part that you find in the dictionary that you've memorized, ideally, and then you drop the re, era, re. Sometimes it's RE, sometimes it's ERE. You have to know which conjugation it is by looking at its lexical entry in the dictionary. Then, for the first conjugation and the second conjugation, that's right here, you add bo, bis, bit, bimis, bitis, bunt. B-U-N-T, B-U-N-T. There's that U-N-T again. For the third and third I conjugation, everything up to the fourth conjugation, you add a different pattern of am, then es, et, emus, etus, ent, and then iam, ies, iet, iems, ietis, and ient. That's for the third I conjugation. And then for the fourth, what you just learned, you add am again, es, et, emus, etis, and ent. That's for the fourth conjugation. First and second have this B pattern, whereas third I, and the fourth have an A or an E that you add before you add your regular old endings. Note that the first conjugation and the second conjugation end with BO, whereas third I, and fourth end with A, M, or IAM, or AM. Now, if you look at an example, first conjugation, you take the second principal part, amare, drop the RE, and then you'd have amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimis, amabitis, amabunt. And this would translate as I will love, you will love, etc. For any of the third I, and fourth conjugations, let's take, for example, a fourth conjugation. Since you just learned that, you take the same thing, second principal part, drop the RE, and then add AM, then ES, then ET, and emus, etc. And again, that translates as I will hear, or I will listen. The same thing would be for any of those other conjugations. If you look up top here, I could do capio. That's the second principal part. Drop the ERE, just have cap. And then you would add the appropriate endings. IAM, IES, IET, etc. I will capture, you will capture, he, she, or it will capture. Pretty simple steps. Remember that these printed lessons are always published on the Blackboard site too, under a folder called Lessons, so you can look back on these and see the print version of it and study that in addition to what's in the book and what's in these screencasts. Here again is a clean copy of that process. You take the second principal part, you drop the re, era, re, and then you add these endings with a B, bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt, for the first and second conjugation, and then these slightly different endings for the third I, and fourth conjugations. A useful process to go through for the practicing of verb conjugations is the verb synopsis. The book will start asking you to do that, so will I. In the verb synopsis, you would choose one verb, let's say amare, amo, amare, amawi. You'd have to know all the principal parts. I'll just write the first three. It's all you need so far. And then you would choose one person and number and conjugate that verb in every tense, mood that you know so far. Every mood, tense, and voice possible for what you know so far. Sorry about the unsteady movement there. Now that's better. So I've chosen one verb, amo, and then I would conjugate it, for example, in the indicative present active. One person and number only. I'll choose the second person singular, you singular. So that would be amas. There's your second person singular for the indicative present active. And then the indicative future active. Amabis, second person singular only. Then amabas, that's the indicative imperfect active. See, I'm going through the conjugation, but not every person and number, just the second person singular. This is the indicative perfect active, second person singular only. This is the indicative pluperfect active, second person singular. This is the indicative future perfect, second person singular. And this is the imperative, that's a different mood, present active, second person singular, because the imperative only comes in the second person singular. So this process means that you choose any single verb that you wanted to. You could do it with moneo, monera, monoi. There's your principal parts that you need so far. You choose one person and number, let's say third person singular. And then I suggest that you do it in the order that I've just shown you. And you just conjugate the indicative present active first, third person singular, monet. Then the indicative future active, mone bit. Then the indicative imperfect, mone bot, third person singular. Then the perfect, monuit. Then the pluperfect, monu eram. And then the future perfect, monu erit. You cannot do the imperative in the third person singular. Every synopsis is only going to be in one person and number. The first synopsis I showed you was all second person singular. The second synopsis for moneo is only third person singular. I've done it in order of the indicative present, then the future, then the imperfect, then the perfect, the pluperfect, and if possible, you can do the imperative present last. The imperative present, though, only comes in the second person singular and second person plural. So far you know a total of 6 possible tenses that you can conjugate in. Very often, if you include the pluperfect, Sorry, I mean if you include the imperfect, if you include the imperative, then you've got a total of 7. Let me write that list of the order in which I would prefer you do it in. The indicative present, the indicative future, the indicative imperfect, then the indicative perfect, the indicative pluperfect, and the indicative future perfect. Those are your main tenses. And that's the order in which I did it over here. And then if you're doing it in the second person singular or second person plural, you can also add the imperative present active. It's a great way to practice your verb forms, and it helps you actually when you read. All of these forms so far are in the active voice. That's the only voice you know. Present, future, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, future perfect, and imperative present active. Those are the potential forms. Very often you won't be able to do the imperative present active, just the first 6 when you do a verb synopsis. I'm going to review the superlative for you. The superlatives are a form of adjective. It's a degree of comparison. There's the positive comparison, that's like long. It's not really a comparison, but these are the degrees of comparison. Then there's the comparative, which would be longer. And then finally there's the superlative, which is longest. So you have the positive degree, the comparative degree, and the superlative degree. That's how you change adjectives to compare them. The regular superlative that you've learned so far is formed through the process of taking the second thing in an adjective's lexical entry. So a normal adjective has a masculine, feminine, and neuter nominative form. That's how it looks in the dictionary. For the regular superlative, you take the feminine form. You drop the A off the end of it, because all the feminine forms will end in an A, and then you add isimus, isima, isimum. You've already learned this in a previous lesson. It'd be albisimus for the masculine, nominative, singular, and then it'd be albisima for the nominative, singular, feminine, and albisimum for the neuter, singular. The albisimus would be conjugated just like any other second declension masculine. Albisimus, the genitive would be I, the dative would be O, the accusative would be UM, etc. Albissima would be just like the word puella or any other first declension feminine, noun or adjective. And then albissimum would be just like any other second declension neuter. It would go I, O, O. The plural would be a, orum, is, is, just like any other neuter you've learned. And we have already learned this and practiced this, so I won't belabor this point. Just want to review for you the regular way to do the superlative. So when you see the irregular adjectives, it'll be easy for you to compare and understand it in terms of the original form that you learned. So in this case, I'm defining irregular adjectives as ones that end in er, like pulcher in the nominative singular, and then pulchra, and then pulchrum. In this case, you take the first thing in the dictionary. This is surprising. This is not the usual way that you deal with adjectives. This is very rare, so it's worth noting. When the adjective starts with er in the masculine form, you take the er form. Forget about all the other ones. Usually you take the second thing in the dictionary. You drop nothing from the er form, and you use this as your stem. Then you add another R, I, M, U, S. That's right, 2 R's. And then that's the masculine form. It would go us, I, O for the singular, E, orum, is, os, is for the plural declension. That's the masculine form. The feminine form, same thing. You start with the ER form, add a rima. That M didn't come out very nice. And then you decline that like any other first declension, A, A, M, A in the singular, A, arum, etc. in the plural. And then the same thing for the neuter. You start with the ER form, you add rim-um, and then it declines like any other second declension neuter. Pretty easy. It looks funny maybe to have the two R's, and it is unusual to start with the first thing in the adjective's lexical entry. But it's not a complicated process if you've been practicing this all along. That's the superlative. So this would be the prettiest in the neuter nominative. This would be the prettiest feminine thing, girl. And this would be the prettiest boy or masculine object, since everything has a gender in Latin, even objects. One last strange declension. It's of the word domus. Domus, as you can see, has two an alternative form for the genitive singular. Here's the nominative singular, domus, but then there's two potential forms for the domus or domi in the genitive. It's up to the author to do it. Even classical authors didn't necessarily pick one or the other. It was apparently something that confused even the Romans. They didn't understand really how to decline this word. Dative, accusative. Dative has two forms. Genitive has two forms. You don't write both of them if you were writing a letter to someone or writing a speech. You would just pick one or the other. But it's inconsistent throughout our sources, so it's difficult to know which form you used. Here's the vocative down here. I usually don't teach the vocative, and I don't expect you to know it, but I put it there for the sake of completeness. Down here, the vocative would be the same as the nominative, plural. And then you see again in the genitive plural, you have two alternative forms. Nominative plural is normal, dative plural is normal, accusative plural is strange. It has two alternatives. And then the ablative plural is normal. That's just a word that you have to learn to recognize and memorize that paradigm. That's a good topic to be quizzed on because it is a common enough word. It means house, but people don't know really which one to pick, even the original Latin authors. That's the end of the podcast. Sorry that it went up so late. I thought it had been submitted by Wednesday. I tried all day to do that, and then it didn't go up. Thank you for those of you that wrote me an email letting me know that it wasn't up.